Hi, I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Well, today I want to talk about something very serious that, of course, most of you will know about by this time, and that is the attack on Israel. I wanted to look at the charts to see what we could see and what the future is and how this all happened. Well, first of all, I want to tell you that I've said this many times before, but it's so hard to figure out where something's going to be happening as an astrologer, because basically what we need to be looking for, we need charts. Remember, astrology is a science. I'm not pulling this out of thin air because I have a feeling. You have to look at individuals' charts. Therefore, this is where we make our predictions, such as I make my predictions for the United States by looking at the birth chart for the United States. I'm going to look at the birth chart for Israel and, of course, their president, Benjamin Netanyahu. And with this, we're going to see that this was coming. And the day it happened and the time, around the time that it's happening, is all here in the charts. But I wasn't looking at Israel's chart. I was looking at many other charts that people asked me to look at. But, you know, really, the beginning of the year, I try to look at a lot of different countries' charts to get a sense of what's going to be happening throughout the year for different countries. But it truly is trying to find a needle in a haystack. And, you know, astrologers get a lot of criticism that they didn't predict something. But you've got to recognize that everything is happening, one thing after another. There's usually not just one major event. Things are building, things are brewing. And yes, I said something big was going to happen starting in September, late September. I saw it all coming, and I knew it would happen between the months of September through November. And those months are the most, dangerous. There is danger everywhere looking at these charts. I kept looking at the chart of the United States, President Biden, and I still see horrific things about to transpire. I mean, we've got to be prepared, and we got to know what the astrology is saying. I know that there's certain times, because see, there's windows. When you look at the degree orbs of planets, you've got to look within at least a 3-degree orb. And planets such as Saturn moves very slow, but I'm going to give you a little information about Saturn, because you see, Saturn is slowing down, and it is about to turn direct from being retrograde. And this makes this powerful. This makes this 10 times more powerful than the aspect of Saturn while it was going back and forth, hitting particular degrees that could have created major events. But now when I look at Saturn, as it's slowing down, here is a rule in astrology that always works. And it's rare to be able to say that, because there's rules that work 75% of the time, not all the time, but this one works pretty much 100% of the time. When you have a planet that's going back and forth with its retrograde motion, and it crosses over maybe one of your planets or a planet in a leader's chart or a country's chart, it's the time that it is slowing down and going retrograde. In other words, or direct. It means when a planet is almost standing still, and that's called a station. And you see, what I saw building was Saturn went back and forth on the United States natal moon 2 previous times, and I said, this could happen, this could happen. You know, you're always saying, I'm always saying a big event's going to happen. Well, it is. It truly is. But it could have happened the 2 other times that the planet went back and forth, okay, and hit that point. But this time, it is Saturn on November 3rd and 4th, it is going to be standing still. And whatever planets it's affecting, either in your chart or in a country's chart, anyone's natal chart, this will be the one that will create the event. And that's what I know. And I will say with adamancy, this is the last time Saturn's going to hit the United States moon, and it is stationed. So this is the time to look out. But let's look at Israel. And before we do, I've got to tell you, I'm so excited. I'm about to launch my new Patreon page. You are going to want to see this because I'm going to be offering package deals where you're going to be able to get so many of my services and new ones at such a discount because everything is going to be in a bundle. And you can get my beautiful jewelry that I'm going to be wearing, a lot of my jewelry that you can get discounts on. During the holidays, pay attention. We have some beautiful new pieces. I love my earrings that have the planets with the sun and the moon. I mean, check out my Patreon page. You're going to get videos. You're going to get exclusive work that I do only for Patreon. And you're going to get my magazine. You're going to get classes where you're going to be live with me, and exclusive uncensored videos. So check it out. October 20th is my launch date for Patreon. I'll keep you up on all this, and I will put out a big announcement. But it is October 20th that it starts, so get ready for that. All right, let's talk about Israel's chart. Let's put up Israel's chart, and let's see what is going on for the natal chart of Israel. So Israel, if we talk about where the transiting planets are on the day of the attack, which was on Saturday, and this attack happened, let's see, it was actually, well, today is October, so it was yesterday, Saturday. That's how I'm doing this. And I'm trying to find the exact minute and time, which I probably won't be able to do. But I'm looking at the date, and it was October 7th. And here's another thing. You know, I do a lot of those daily aspects, and I mainly look at the moon, where the moon is. And October 7th and October 8th in my daily forecast, Pluto and Mars are in a square. Now, I said it was the 8th, but come on. I mean, depending on, it was hours difference. If you look at the time from October 7th to the 8th, it was within a 24-hour period. But Mars is actually squaring Pluto for, you know, about 3 or 4 days. But I just gave the exact time. This is extreme blow-ups. This is something serious. Mars, Pluto, plus where Saturn is. I want you to take note of that. But I gotta be honest with you. When I'm doing these daily predictions, I really, to be honest with you, toned it down a lot, because I felt like I was talking about war and catastrophes and explosive events too much. And it was really kind of getting monotonous for me as well. But this is just the beginning, guys. I got to tell you, this is where it all starts. And, you know, we've had the Ukraine war with Russia going on. Now we're having another war with Israel. So, you know, with Hamas, and, you know, everyone's trying to trace it where this country's coming from, who's funding them, and all of the above. But this is just the beginning, because really what I'm seeing, and it's been building since September, is serious astrological events. So the one thing I do want to note is the eclipse seasons right now. We have got a solar eclipse that is happening, let's see, the 14th of October, and then we have the lunar eclipse, which is happening October 28th. And these eclipses are incredibly powerful. Why? Because they're with Mars. Mars is the trigger. I did a whole video talking about how Mars is the trigger. It's with K2 right now, which deals with terrorism. It absolutely does. This is absolutely terrorism, okay? And that's what Mars with K2 close to an eclipse is going to bring. So and I want you to know, astrology is really something that everyone can learn and help give themselves guidance with. And I want to help the world understand astrology. I want to take astrology to the next level, just like, you know, yoga used to be considered weird. Now you see it on every doorstep, or, you know, in shopping centers is what I mean. So this is the future. We need this science. Bring it back in its full force that it needs to be to better understand where the world's going and where we are going. So Israel, let's just consider, look at where their natal Mars is in Leo. Do you know where transiting Saturn is? And Saturn moves very slow, right? It takes almost 30 years for it to go through all 12 signs of the zodiac. So this is a rare and pungent, powerful transit. And it is stationing, as I said, at 6 degrees of Aquarius. Plug it in this chart, and you'll see that it is within 1 degree of opposing natal Mars in the chart for Israel. That is so potent and powerful. And if you'll look at this chart for Israel, transiting Saturn is in the 6th house of this chart, which represents what? Enemies. But it is aspecting natal Mars in the 12th house, which is secret enemies. So the 6th and the 12th deal with enemies. And there you go. Saturn's in the 6th, aspecting Mars in the 12th house of this chart. And even if you look at Chandra Lagna, which means making the moon the ascendant, you would have transiting Saturn in the 8th house from the moon. Just count from the moon where it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's Aquarius where Saturn is. So it's 8th from the moon. What is the 8th house? Death, destruction, endings. And the natal Mars sits in the 2nd house, which can be a Marika house, which means death inflicting. So you can see this just by looking at the transit of Saturn. Okay, so let's move on to something else to give you more, because that's just one thing going on. You need more than one thing to make a major prediction, right? So if you will plug in where Rahu and Ketu are currently, remember I kept saying that Rahu is Gandanta between September through December, and that means things are out of control, completely out of control. So if you'll look at that, Rahu sitting at 0 degrees of Aries, plug it into this chart, and K2 sits at 0 degrees of Libra. Look where the sun is in this chart, at 0 degrees of Taurus. So if you count from where K2 is to where the sun is, you will find that the sun goes 8 placements from where K2 is exactly. This is actually a quincunx in Western astrology, which is the most difficult aspect of all. I just look at it as an 8-6 relationship, which is the worst. Because what does the 8th house deal with? Death. So we can see the nodal axes are right there exact on this day. The nodal axes take 18.5 years to go through all 12 signs. So these are life-changing events. They don't happen every year. That's what I want you to see, and that's what I want you to know. Now, Mars is a planet that is always going to be detrimental in many respects. And Mars is going to move up and cross over Ketu in Israel's chart. Now, it's not right away. As a matter of fact, I'm going to look it up in my trusty ephemeris to give you the date that Mars will cross over 20 degrees of Libra. So Mars will be 20 degrees of Libra around November 1st. So when I say November 1st, let me tell you, it can be a week before or a week after that date. Why? Because when a planet is within a 3-degree range, it can set things off. That's the real difficulty of astrology. We can't just say it's going to happen this day, but we can say it can happen around this time any of these days. So I want you to know this is how astrology works. But this particular day that they were attacked, we do have the nodes exact, and we do have Saturn almost exact within less than a degree. So when you have a buildup of events that happen at around the same time, you can say it's going to happen, you know, the 8th, the 7th, or the 6th, kind of things like that. And the longer range, because Saturn's going to be aspecting Mars for a really long time, they're in trouble for a while, for months, okay? Because Saturn will be at these degrees for months. Now, the next chart I want to look at is Netanyahu, because his chart tells another story. What do I always say? Look at the country's chart, look at the leader's chart, if you want to know what's going on in your country. And yes, I have a lot of countries to study in the world, and I don't have that kind of time. I do readings and I write, and I'm constantly doing videos too. So, looking at Netanyahu's chart, let's put his up here. This is just astounding to me, the exactness of what's going on. Notice where his natal moon sits at 26 degrees of Virgo. Do you know where the solar eclipse is going to occur? Yes, 26 degrees, 56 minutes of Virgo, and sits right on his natal moon. And that is so damaging. And you know, his moon being in the 11th house can be friends or people that he thinks are supporting him. Well, think again with this eclipse. It's a big changeover. Eclipses are radical changes. And what else do you hear me say all the time about eclipses? They always bring something out we didn't know about. Well, these countries have been fighting for 50 years or more, okay? Constantly. But they say this is one of the biggest hits in 50 years. So this eclipse happening on his moon tells you a lot, especially with all the hits happening in the country. But let's plug in transiting Mars. On that day, the 7th, Mars was 3 degrees of Libra. Look at Netanyahu's sun, 4 degrees of Libra. Within a degree, Mars is smack dab on his sun. And Ketu crossed over his sun, and Ketu's right there. His sun sits between, well, right next to Mars-Ketu conjunction. Remember I said that's terrorism. And it is in his 12th house, which is what? What did I tell you before? It is the house of secret enemies. And in Vedic astrology, we look at it as foreign countries. So that's pretty direct. Transiting Mars. What is Mars? Violence, war, attacks, weapons, fire. It's on his sun with K2. Now, Mars will cross over his sun once every 2 years, but not with K2. That's the combo that really sets it off for him. Because K2 won't be there but once every 18 and a half years. So looking at some other things that I felt were very interesting, Pluto was very close to his Jupiter in the 3rd house. Transiting Pluto sits at 3 degrees of Capricorn. And remember, Mars sits at 3 degrees of Libra. That's the 2 transiting planets. But Pluto is squaring his sun where Mars is situated on it. That is so much danger. Pluto is what? Major explosive events. It deals with atomic energy. Now, I hope that's not going to come into play here, but Pluto rules events that big. Okay, Pluto squaring Mars, and they sit on his sun with transiting K2 there. So the eclipse, though, tells the story that it sits right on his moon. And this is just incredible to see how this astrology is painting the picture of what is happening. Now, let me explain another thing that has not come into the picture yet that I think you're going to want to know. I've been looking at the chart of the United States, and it doesn't look good. Remember what I said about Saturn's going back and forth on a particular planet in your chart when it's going retrograde, direct? It will cross over 3 times. But it is the time that the planet is stationing that will give the result. And for Saturn, it is the last time. It's not always the last time. Could be the first, the second, or the third. But it's happening this last time where, let's put up the chart for the United States. Because I think this whole war, it's going to pull in the United States somehow. And maybe it's monetarily, but still, it's going to have a huge effect. Because now this war is happening, just started, and transiting Saturn is 6-7 degrees of Aquarius right now, and that is the moon of the United States. So you see, that's the degree to look for when a planet stations. Whether it's stationary retrograde or stationary direct, when it stands still, it's 100 times more powerful. And that will create events. Saturn. Saturn being, look at the United States moon at 7 degrees of Aquarius, and Saturn's going to station there pretty much between now through November and part of December. And we're going to have planets, Mars and the Sun, traveling together, which is very warlike throughout November, December too. So this is the time frame I'm giving for these explosive events. Here's another thing I want you to think about with the United States chart. In Vedic astrology, we use what are called the dashas. And what I look at is the Mahadasha and the subcycle, which I call the Bhukti. Some people call it the second level, which is, I call the Bhukti. So just let's look at 2 levels. And it is that the United States currently, right now, just started in September of 2023, Rahu Mercury. And it will be in Rahu Mercury till March of 2026, till the end of March of 2026. If you will notice where Rahu and Mercury are in this chart, it's going to put chills down your spine in the 8th house, which is danger. And so from this whole time, we have some, and the 8th house deals with the economy. It deals with money. It deals with major corruption and loss. It's going, I don't want to say it, but it's It's a very difficult time for the U.S. Plus, let's plug in where transiting Pluto is currently right now. At 3 degrees of Capricorn, exactly aspecting Mercury, the Bhukti of the Mahadasha ruling cycle, dashas. It's in Rahu, Mercury. Mercury's the Bhukti, and it is being aspected by Pluto. And Pluto sits in the second house dealing with finances and money. Plus, the second house has Pluto there in the United States. Did a whole video on this, so watch that one. Is experiencing a Pluto return. Takes about 244 to 245 years for Pluto to go through all 12 signs of the zodiac. Now, I don't know any living person that's going to experience that, but this country is. So what does a return mean? It brings it back to it's the way it was when the birth chart originated, when it began. So it's going to bring things back to what the United States stood for and what it's all about. But it's got to go through this major upheaval to get there. Because as it stands right now, it is not working. And I don't care what people are saying in the news or in the media. It's not working right now. People are getting ready to explode. And the next thing that I thought was really interesting was when you look at where transiting Mars is, well, Mars, but this happens every 2 years, but still, it's a powerful Mars next to the eclipse. And Jupiter and Mars will oppose one another at 27 degrees during the time, 17 degrees. Mars and Jupiter will oppose each other during the time of the lunar eclipse. And that's going to be getting very close to the Brigue point in the United States chart. What is the Brigue point? It's actually called the destiny point. Deals with a certain destiny. When you have benefics, which are the good planets, Jupiter, Venus, Mercury, aspect the Brigue point, good things happen. But when you have malefics cross over it, not so good things happen, okay? And that goes in everyone's chart. I'm going to do a video on the Brigue point so you can spot that in your own chart. What is the Brigue point besides the destiny point? It is simply the midpoint between Rahu and the moon. Think about how important that is. Rahu is your destiny, but your moon is how you feel about everything. It's the most sensitive planet in your chart. So the Brigue point, benefics cross over it, good things happen. Malefics cross over it, bad things happen. So watch that point. So Mars is going to cross over the Brigue point during these during the lunar eclipse. It's getting really close, but then into November it's going to cross over. November is going to stir up things maybe even worse than October. I hate to tell you this, but I've been looking at all the planets, and I actually have already done my predictions for November. And to be honest with you, I toned it down a little bit because I didn't want to be overly dramatic about all the difficult things I see being stirred up. So I'm being honest with you right now, and I want you guys to pay attention. And last but not least, the other chart that ties it all together, it tells you something big is about to happen in the United States, is President Biden's chart. So looking at President Biden's chart, I already did a video on this, but I'm going to give you a little pre-information before you have to watch that one. But if you look at Biden's chart, look where his natal Ketu sits at 7 degrees of Aquarius. And September, October, November, Saturn is stationing at 6, 7 degrees of Aquarius. And it's in his 4th house. This is very difficult because the fourth house in the United States deals with, when you're looking at a president, it deals with the homeland. Saturn is on K2. It is only a matter of time. And with all that's been happening, September, October, November, you're going to see that this is what's been building. This is what I've been talking about. It's all in the stars. This is not my imagination. So Saturn on Biden's K2 in the fourth house, this is very difficult for the United States and for him as well. The fourth house can deal with the heart. The fourth house can deal with end of life, things of that nature. But it's really telling us a lot about the U.S. Another thing, look at where his natal moon sits. 7 degrees of Aries, which you may not know is Saturn's full 100% in strength aspect, is the sextile of Western astrology, which is actually 3 placements from where it is. So if you look at where transiting Saturn is in Aquarius and you count 3 signs away, 1, 2, 3, boom. The transit of Saturn, while it's stationing, is exactly hitting his natal moon. And that is very damaging. Now his moon sits in the 6th house. And the 6th house can deal with enemies if you're looking in terms of the United States chart. But for him personally, it's his health. The 6th house is health, okay? And enemies. But if you plug in where the transit of Uranus is right now, it sits at 28 degrees of Aries. Look where his Mercury sits, 28 degrees of Libra. So in other words, we have the transit of Uranus, which is sudden unexpected events, opposing his natal Mercury in the 12th house, secret enemies, and Mercury is the planet that rules his 8th house, which can deal with endings. And of course, what are endings? Either, taking him out or physically out. So this is a critical time. And even the eclipse, when you look at the eclipse, Mars and K2 are transiting President Biden's 12th house, which is radically dangerous because the 12th house is secret enemies. And so Mars is going to cross over his Mars. This is going to be in November, and it's going to be almost at the lunar eclipse where Mars is going to be 17 degrees. So it's going to be the very end of October and leading into November when we're going to have Mars cross over his Mercury while Uranus is opposing it. And let me look that up in my trusty ephemeris. By the way, do y'all know what an ephemeris is? It's where all the planets are. I use the sidereal one, of course, which is where the planets truly are. But we have the transit of Mars when it's going to oppose Uranus. I do think it's going to be in November. And 28, 29 degrees is going to be around mid-November. It's going to be around the 12th through the 14th. So watch that. That is crucial. There's so much happening. It's abominable what is happening astrologically affecting the president. And then we're going to have the transit of Mars go into Scorpio, which will be where it's going to come together with with the sun. So Sun, Mars are going to finally come together. And I have all of this in all of my writing that you get if you are subscribed to my free newsletter. You can get that off my website. Remember, go to galacticcenter.org, sign up for my free newsletter, and you're going to get all of these dates and times that I'm actually trying to look up here as we go. But transiting Mars and the Sun are going to collide together, I believe around 0 degrees or 1 degree of Scorpio. That's correct. So that's going to be, let's see, yes, it's going to be around November 18th through the 20th. And once they are in Scorpio, after that, they're going to cross over Biden's Sun and Venus in the first house. It is not looking good for the U.S. So we have got to take caution, and everything that's happening in Israel. Oh my gosh, Israel is under dire pressure. Now, I thought to look at the charts of Iran and their leader, but we're not quite sure who's behind all this yet. So pay attention. I'm going to have some live YouTubes with Shrika Laram, who is my partner and helps me run the university. She is an amazing astrologer, and she's going to help me with this. We're going to do a live YouTube, so get ready. We will be able to answer your questions, looking at all the charts involved here, and we're going to make some predictions as to what will be happening. And so I'm sitting here at my desk right now, and I'm looking at all these charts, and I know something. Hey, I'm going to say it. Shocking is going to happen. You guys make fun of me because I use those words, but would you have clicked to see what I'm talking about if I didn't? It's the way of the world, guys. The only way I can get people to pay attention to what I'm trying to say in astrology is to use such words. But let me say something. It is going to be shocking, and it is going to be big. We are in a serious place now, and more than anything, I want all of you out there to pray, to visualize peace, because even though everything is set into motion, may not be avoidable, we can make a difference if we all focus on the good and the beautiful and the peace and the love that this planet has. In my opinion, it is insane that human beings kill one another. And there's obvious reasons why the extraterrestrials don't want to reveal themselves, because we are such a barbaric humanity. To kill other people is the most insane thing, and our planet is still insane. We have to bring up the vibration in ourselves, and we have to connect to the divine and visualize and ask for peace in this world and higher consciousness in everyone. This is not okay that we have a planet of people that hurt each other. We can't do this anymore. This is wrong, and I want you to participate in bringing up the energy. As a matter of fact, that's what my Shooting Stars classes are all about. Not that I want to tout all the things I'm doing, but that is one of the ways that we can raise consciousness in the world, through coming together and doing the work together to raise consciousness. And that's what I'm here to do. So check out my Shooting Stars. It's going to be part of my Patreon package, and you'll want to be part of it if this resonates with you, what I'm saying, to raise our consciousness, to bring peace to the planet. And everything that's happening, I mean, it's happening, but hopefully, I don't know if it's possible, but I want to believe it's possible that we can avert some of the dangers that are thrown into motion right now. So with that, I think I'll close. I hope you enjoyed this dissertation of astrology and what's going on in the charts. And yes, really and truly, you can learn to do this as well. Astrology is a science, And it is something that I think can change lives. Well, I know it does. And if you're interested in studying with me, I do have a school. I have a university. Check that out too. University of Vedic Astrology.com. Become my student and we'll work together. Thank you.